Yo, what's up guys? It's King Sean here, back with another video, and in today's video I'll be discussing some free agent tight ends the Commanders should target or consider signing this offseason. I'll give you guys about 4 or 5 tight ends I think they should sign. Consider signing. So, if you guys are new to my channel, leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications. I'm on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so if you could hit that sub button, I'd really appreciate it. And with that out of the way, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so as you all know, NFL free agency starts in about 3 weeks from now. So every couple of days, I'll be coming out with a video like this, discussing some of our needs and discussing what players we could fill in for those needs. So starting with tight ends, and the first player I have on here is Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz, he's become one of the better tight ends in the league for the past 2 3 seasons now. He was drafted by the Cowboys in 2018. He had 12 catches for 116 yards, no touchdowns. He didn't do much. He didn't do anything at all in 2019. Only one catch for 6 yards. But then in 2020, the Cowboys starting tight end actually was Blake Jarwin. But since he got injured, he tore his ACL, I think, earlier that season. So they decided to start Dalton Schultz in place of him, and he had a pretty good 2020 season. He played in 16 games. He had 63 receptions, 615 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And every season he's played for the Cowboys, all 5 seasons he's been with for the Cowboys, he's been relatively healthy. 2018, he missed 5 games. Well, yeah, 5 games. Only played 11 games. Then in 2019, he played all 16. In 2020, he also played all 16. In 2021, all 17. And then in 2022, he played 15 games. So in 2021, the best year of his career, he played all 17 games, as I mentioned, 78 catches, 808 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's a really good season right there. And then this past season, 2022, he played in 15 games, had 57 receptions, 577 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So Dalton Schultz, I like him a lot. We really need a tight end. We have Cole Turner, but we didn't see. Well, I mean, we didn't really use our tight ends this past season. Scott Turner, we really didn't use our tight ends at all. That's why we fired Scott Turner, brought in Eric Bieniemy, and Eric Bieniemy, the hire of Eric Bieniemy could persuade some offensive players, specifically tight end position, maybe some former Chiefs that are going to be free agents this upcoming free agency, and maybe some old linemen to come here now that Eric Bieniemy is our offensive coordinator. And specifically tight ends, actually, maybe we could pick up maybe one, maybe two tight ends, specifically one maybe. But I love Dalton Schultz in DC. He's a really good tight end. He's developed into one of the best tight ends in the NFL. He was really good this past regular season. I think he had like 2 touchdowns against the Buccaneers. He was pretty good in the 49ers game as well. So I like Dalton Schultz a lot. He's pretty good against us as well. We can't stop tight ends for nothing. So, I mean, I love Dalton Schultz on the Commanders. I think he'd be a really good addition. And I think he'd come here maybe $8 million to $10 million per year. Right now, I know he's on the franchise tag, so he's making $10 million on that. So maybe 10, 11, maybe 12 mil per year is good for him. But I definitely love Dalton Schultz on my team. So, that's Dalton Schultz, and moving on to the next guy. All right, so the next guy I have on here is Evan Ingram. And with Evan Ingram, he hasn't had the greatest career, specifically with the Giants. He was drafted by the Giants in 2017. He played in 15 games, 15 out of the 16 games in 2017, with 64 catches, 722 yards, and 6 touchdowns. A pretty good rookie season. In 2018, he had a pretty significant drop-off, with only playing 11 games and had 45 receptions, 577 yards, and 3 touchdowns. In 2019, he missed a bit of games, 8 catches. Not 8 catches. He played in 8 games with 44 catches, 467 yards, 3 touchdowns. And in 2020, he played all 16 games, 63 receptions, 654 yards, 1 touchdown. Now, the problem with Evan Ingram in New York was not specifically his production, because if you look at his stats, I mean, it's not really bad for a tight end, unless you're like George Kittle or Travis Kelce, maybe Dallas Goedert, someone like that. It's pretty good production for a tight end. The thing with Evan Ingram was how inconsistent he was, specifically with his hands. He dropped a lot of balls when he was with the Giants. So he really couldn't catch when he was with the Giants. So that's mainly the reason why the Giants moved on from him. They did pick up his fifth-year option, so he did play with them in 2021, playing 15 out of the 17 games, 46 receptions, 408 yards, 3 touchdowns. But then he entered free agency, and looked to sign elsewhere. He signed with the Jaguars on a 1-year deal worth $10 million. I think it was $7 or $10 million. And he was really good with the Jaguars this past season. 17 games. He played in all of their games. 73 receptions, 766 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a career high, his best stats of his entire NFL career. Evan Ingram, he played very well last season, especially from stretches like, I think, week 13, week 14, all the way up until the Chiefs game in the playoffs. So Evan Ingram, he played really well. Now, I don't think we will sign him, only because I think the Jaguars will re-sign him. He's only 28, so they'll probably give him like a 2-3 year deal worth maybe $10 to $12 million, maybe 13. So, and if he does enter free agency, I think there's actually a solid chance we sign him, because $10-12 million, I mean, we could definitely sign him. Once we release Carson Wentz and maybe a few other players like Logan Thomas. Obviously, that's mainly why we need a tight end, is because Logan Thomas, he just wasn't good this past season. I think he only had like 200 yards, but most of that isn't his fault, only because because Scott Turner, he didn't use our tight ends at all. John Bates, Armani Rogers, Cole Turner, Logan Thomas, he didn't use our tight ends at all. And then second, because of injuries in 2021, he tore his MCL and ACL. It was kind of hard because although he had recovered from that in the off season, there's still some effects from those injuries. So, it was kind of hard to play with that. He also had the brace on, so those are some excuses for Logan Thomas, but he just wasn't the same. He's 31, 32 right now. We just got to go younger, maybe sign a young tight end, or draft one in the upcoming draft. So that is my thoughts on Evan Ingram. I definitely would be really, really happy if we were able to pick him up. Okay, so moving on, I got Mike Gesicki here, and with him, his situation is interesting because last offseason, he was supposed to be a free agent, but the Dolphins decided to franchise tag him because of his play the past 2 seasons, 2021, 2022. He played in all 17 games in 2021, 73 catches, 780 yards, 2 touchdowns, and in 2020, he played in 15 out of the 16 games with 53 receptions, 703 yards, and 6 touchdowns. The years prior to that, 2019, he played in all 16 games, 51 catches, 570 yards, 5 touchdowns, and in his rookie season, 2018, he played in 16 games for 22 receptions and 202 yards. Now, the problem here is the Dolphins might not re-sign him based off the fact that his 2022 season wasn't great. He played in all 17 games, so Mike Gesicki has been healthy basically his entire year. He's only missed 1 game his whole entire career. In 2020, he only played 15 games there. But, he played in all 17 games, 32 receptions, 362 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, that's a massive drop down from his prior 2 seasons, even his 2019 season. So, the reason because of this is because they got Jalen Waddle the year before, they drafted him, and they traded for Tyreek Hill that same, the past offseason. So, there was really no use for Mike Gesicki, although he's still a really good tight end. Now, Mike Gesicki, he can't really block. He can't really block. That's probably one of the main reasons why the Dolphins might move on from him and then get another guy to replace him. But for me, Mike Gesicki, he's a really good tight end. He's one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL. The problem is he can't block, but that's no problem because if he were to come to DC, we already have a good blocking tight end in John Bates, so I really wouldn't be worried about if he can block or not. And maybe we draft another tight end or sign another tight end that can actually block and can also do some receiving as well. So I like Mike Gesicki a lot. I'd be down to give him maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, maybe a 1-year deal to prove himself next season, and if he does well, maybe give him a 2 or 3 year extension. So those are my thoughts on Mike Gesicki. He's still young. He's 27. He was drafted in 2018 out of Penn State. So Mike Gesicki, he's still young. He's still a pretty good player. The problem is he can't really block, but that really shouldn't be an issue over here where Eric Bieniemy, we're definitely going to start using our tight ends way more with Eric Bieniemy now here in DC. So those are my thoughts on Mike Gesicki. The comments down below. If he does become a free agent, do you think the Commanders should sign him? All right, so now here's a pretty underrated tight end in the NFL, in my opinion at least. Hayden Hurst. And Hayden Hurst, he's been through 3 teams so far and is expected to be with the 4th if the Bengals don't re-sign him before free agency. He was drafted in 2018 in the first round by the Ravens, and the Ravens had high hopes about him coming out of the draft, but he ended up playing only 12 games. He had 13 catches, 163 yards, and only 1 touchdown. Now, they did draft the tight end in the 3rd round. Y'all might know the name Mark Andrews, who's now become one of the best tight ends in the NFL, top 3, maybe top 5, in my opinion at least. So with Mark Andrews being spectacular, there was really no need for Hayden Hurst. So after his 2nd year with the Ravens in 2019, which he played all 16 games, he had 30 receptions, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns. They traded him to the Falcons for, I think, a 2nd-round pick and a player, which in 2020, he had his best statistical season, playing 16 games, had 56 receptions, 571 yards, and 6 touchdowns. The Falcons did like what they saw out of him, so they kept him around for another season, but they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So in 2021, he only played 13 games, had 26 receptions, 221 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Definitely a pretty significant drop-off from the 2020 season. Then they let him walk in free agency, didn't resign him, didn't franchise tag him, and they let him go to, and the Bengals picked him up. They signed him, and he played 13 games with the Bengals, had 52 receptions, 414 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A decent season, you know, out of a tight end who's been on 2 teams by now, hasn't really produced well, was projected to be a top tight end coming out of the NFL draft, and ultimately wasn't, being replaced by a 3rd-round pick who's now become one of the best tight ends in the NFL. You know, Hayden Hurst, he hasn't had the greatest career, but with the Bengals, he seemed to, you know, pick some things up, you know, get some stuff going. So I would definitely not mind picking up, getting Hayden Hurst. He is kind of old because he was drafted in 2018. I think he was like 23 or 24 coming out of the 2018 draft, and he's 29. He's turning 30 later this year, so he's kind of old. But I would not mind, you know, signing him to a 1-year deal, maybe 2-year deal worth like $10 million, maybe 11. So I definitely wouldn't mind Hayden Hurst at all. I won't spend too much time on him, but I definitely wouldn't mind Hayden Hurst at all. Comment down below if you guys think, you know, you would pick up Hayden Hurst. He is a decent blocker as well, not only a receiving tight end, but he also is a decent blocker. Now, the final guy I have on here is Austin Hooper, and he's had a solid career, you know. He's been in the NFL for 7 years now. Yeah, 7 years now. He was with the Falcons he was drafted by the Falcons in 2016. He's been relatively healthy his entire year, playing 14 games in 2016, 16 in 2017, 16 in 2018, 13 in 2019, 13 as well in 2020, 16 in 2021, and 17 in 2022. In the 2016 season, his rookie season with the Falcons, he had 19 receptions, 271 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not bad for a rookie tight end being drafted out of the 3rd round. In 2017, he played all 16 games for the Falcons, had 49 receptions, 526 yards, 3 touchdowns. A very solid season for a tight end. In 2018, he had 71 catches, 660 yards, 4 touchdowns, very good. And in 2019, he had 75 receptions, 787 yards, 6 touchdowns. So with every season with the Falcons, he's improved and improved. His stats and his production has gotten better each and every season. Now, they weren't able to agree on an extension or able to re-sign him, so they just let him walk into free agency, and the Browns picked him up on a 4-year, I want to say $44 million deal, $11 million per year. I think then he was the highest paid tight end in the NFL. Now, that's obviously been topped. I think George Kittle's the highest paid tight end in the NFL. I'm not sure how much it is, or how much he's getting paid per year, but he is the highest paid tight end in the NFL right now. Anyways, in 2020, when he first got signed with the Browns, in 2020, his first season with the Browns, he played 13 games, he had 46 receptions, 435 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not really great for a guy you're paying $11 million per year, and at the time, the highest paid tight end in the NFL. In 2021, he had a drop down. Played all 16 games, had 38 receptions, 345 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not great at all. Not great at all. So the Browns then decided to release him, and the Titans picked him up in 2022 offseason, or free agency. He played in all 17 games for the Titans, had 41 receptions, 444 yards, and 2 touchdowns for them. So that is not a bad season at all. And Austin Hooper, I wouldn't mind signing him. I really wouldn't. Maybe a 1-year deal. He's still 28, and the crazy part about it is he's been in the league 2 years longer than Austin Hooper, yet he's younger than him by 1 year, which is crazy to me. That just shows how Austin Hooper, he's older. You know, he's one of the older players in the league. So I think he was in college for like 5 years or 5 or 6 years. So that's probably why. But anyways, I would not mind Austin Hooper at all. I wouldn't mind if we picked him up, 1 or 2 year deal, and then maybe draft a tight end, or maybe develop Cole Turner or John Bateson to become the tight end you drafted them to be. So those are my thoughts on Austin Hooper. Comment down below if you think the Commanders should go out and maybe target him or sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal, like I said. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications. Like I said, comment down below if you think the Commanders should even sign a tight end this offseason, or maybe draft one. And if sign a tight end, which one should they sign? It could be someone off of the players I covered in this video, or someone else out there that's a free agency. Like I said, I'm on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so if you could hit that sub button, I'd really appreciate it. And other than that, it's been King Sean, and I'm out. Peace.